For you folks that have been having compassion on people, this is called the longing by Paul Brand and Philip Yancey. He says, John Carmagan came to me in Vellore, India, as a leprosy patient in an advanced state of his disease. We could do little for him surgically, since both his feet and hands were already well damaged and irreparable. We could, however, offer him a place to stay and employment in the new life center. Because of one-sided facial paralysis, John could not smile normally. When he tried, the uneven distortion of his features would draw attention to his paralysis. People often responded with a gasp or a gesture of fear, so he learned not to smile. Margaret, my wife, had stitched his eyelids partly closed to protect his sight. John grew more and more paranoid about what others thought of him. He caused terrible problems socially, perhaps in reaction to his marred appearance. He expressed his anger at the world by acting the part of the troublemaker. And I remember many tense scenes in which we had to confront John with some evidence of stealing or dishonesty. He treated fellow patients cruelly and resisted all authority, going so far as to organize hunger strikes against us. By almost everyone's reckoning, he was beyond rehabilitation. Perhaps John's very irredeemability attracted my mother to him, for she often latched on to the least desirable specimens of humanity. She took to John, spent time with him, and eventually led him to the Christian faith. He was baptized in a cement tank on the grounds of the leprosarium. Conversion, however, did not temper John's high dudgeon against the world. He gained some friends from among patients, but a lifetime of rejection and mistreatment had permanently embittered him against all non-patients. One day, almost defiantly, he asked me what would happen if he visited the local Tamil church at Vellore. I went to the leaders of the church, described Sean, and assured them that despite his obvious deformities, he had entered a safe stage of the arrested disease and would not endanger the congregation. They agreed he would visit. Can he take communion, I asked, knowing that the church had a common cup. They looked at each other for a moment and agreed that he could take communion. Shortly thereafter, I took John to the church, which met in a plain, whitewashed brick building with a corrugated iron roof. It was a tense moment for him. Those of us on the outside can hardly imagine the trauma and paranoia inside a leprosy patient who attempts for the first time to enter that kind of setting. I stood with him at the back of the church. His paralyzed face showed no reaction, but a trembling gave away his inner turmoil. I prayed silently that no church member would show the slightest hint of rejection. As he entered during the singing of the first hymn, an Indian man toward the back half turned and saw us. We must have been an odd couple, a white person standing next to a leprosy patient with patches of his skin in garish disarray. I held my breath, and then it happened. The man put down his hymnal, smiled broadly, and patted the chair next to him, inviting John to join him. John could not have been more startled. Haltingly, he made shuffling half steps to the row and took a seat. I breathed a prayer of thanks. That one instance proved to be the turning point of John's life. Years later, I visited Vellore and made a side trip to the factory that had been set up to employ disabled people. The manager wanted to show me a machine that produced tiny screws for typewriter parts. As he walked through the noisy plant, he shouted at me that he would introduce me to his prize employee, a man who had just won the parent corporation All India Prize for the highest quality work with the fewest rejects. As we arrived at his workstation, the employee turned to greet us, and I saw the unmistakable crooked face of John Carmagan. He wiped the grease off his stumpy hand and grinned with the ugliest, the loveliest, most radiant smile I had ever seen. He held out for my inspection a palmful of small precision screws that had won him the prize. A simple gesture of acceptance may not seem like much, But for John Carmagan, it proved decisive. After a lifetime of being judged by his own physical image, he had finally been welcomed on the basis of another image. I had seen a replay of Christ's own reconciliation. His Spirit had prompted the body on earth to adopt a new member, and at last John knew that he belonged. Isn't that cool? God bless you. Is that good? You like that one?